Very excited to have you all here and learn a little bit about Bright Futures. In a nutshell, I can tell you a little bit about our involvement in Bright Futures and how it got started, and a little bit about Bright Futures itself. Bright Futures USA started in Joplin, Missouri. The school district in Joplin, Missouri was having issues with students dropping out of school, and they were concerned about that. And so they started some programming to involve the community and help kids and mentor kids to get them to graduate. And just around that time when Bright Futures was getting going, Kim Voss, her name is Kim Voss, she was the head of Bright Futures, Joplin. Just around the time when Bright Futures was getting going in Joplin, the tornado hit. And when the tornado hit in Joplin, there was needs everywhere. And so what they kind of saw was Bright Futures was already in place. You had a school, you had a community, you had kids that had needs, and it turned into a whole different thing. And so with that, it grew and grew and grew. Different schools nearby Joplin started becoming members of Bright Futures. Other schools in Missouri started becoming members of Bright Futures. Schools in different states started becoming members of Bright Futures. So Bright Futures USA has grown and continued to grow well outside Missouri and throughout the country. And it's really turned into a wonderful thing. And the gist of it is that, kids have needs that we all know of, or we might not know of. But kids have needs that'll happen in their lives. And the ultimate goal in Bright Futures is that if a child has a need, we want to solve that need within 24 hours. At this time, I want to introduce Kathy Allen. Kathy?
Good morning. Thank you all for coming. I can honestly say probably everybody in this room has responded to a need that I've asked you over the last several years for one of my kids, and I just thank you all so much for always caring for our kids and always stepping up to the plate to help us. I would like to introduce to you our advisory board. Can you all stand up? Because I don't know where everybody is at. Judy Hall, come up here. Rusty Strother, come up here. Melissa Gooch, Brian Hummel, Kim Hafford, Lisa Lovell, Robin Jennings, Lois Curtis, Helen McFarland. Who am I missing out here that I don't see? Sheila Ennis. Cammie Black. Cammie Black. I got Helen. Who else do I have? These people all trained with me this summer. We spent a day working with Bright Futures, and we all trained and tried to figure out what we were doing, and we're just starting our journey.
The kids are struggling because there's some kind of a deficit in their life, but it's not always pretty. And I know I'm in the public relations business at the Chamber of Commerce. It's important to me when people come in that they see the best there is to see. That's not always what you get when you go into the schools. So unless you are a brave, strong superintendent that puts kids first, you don't invite the neighborhood. So thank you, Dr. Hunter, for that, because it makes a huge difference long term. And you guys have such a champion with Kathy. She is wound for sound about Bright Futures, and that's so exciting. And that's really what it takes, is one person that truly has a heart for kids to get things rolling and to lead the way. And then it's crazy the things that happen. So in Mexico, we became an affiliate in 2015 in August. We had our first meetings, we learned about Bright Futures, we had a big meeting like this, and then we kind of stalled for a little bit. We had people excited, but we didn't really know where to start. So we started the Lunch Buddy program. So all in my fired up, ready to go manner, I called the first school and I said, so, how many kids do you have that you think really struggle that could use a Lunch Buddy? Now Mexico has 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school and a high school, and I thought that they would tell me there were 5 or 6 kids. And the first elementary school that I called said 40, and I'm thinking 40 kids times 3 different elementary schools, and then you're looking at middle school and high school, what are we ever going to do? So sat on it a couple days and thought maybe there are some stakeholders in our community that know it's important to help these kids that could come on board and encourage their employees to participate. So for us, my first trip was to the city of Mexico, and I sat down with the city administrator and said, if our kids aren't healthy, we're not healthy. If we don't have great schools, then we can't recruit people for economic development. What does the future of Mexico look like? My kids graduated from high school, went off to college, and probably work someplace else, but it's those kids that are not always having their basic needs met that are the future of our community. So he's like, yep, that's all true, that's great. And I said, would you consider letting your employees have an hour-and-a-half lunch every other week to mentor a child? And he said, well, sure. And he said, but I'd like to go in first and just see what that's like before we open it up to any city employee. So there I had the first offer of boots on the ground. He set up a time and let me talk to all the directors of the city. So then I went over to the commissioner's office and started talking to the gentleman, and Steve was like, well, that sounds like a good idea. And I said, I want all you commissioners to be the first lunch buddies and then open it up to elected officials or other courthouse employees. But the deal I asked for is, can you let them have an hour-and-a-half lunch? Anytime they're going to be a lunch buddy, can they have that hour-and-a-half? So then it's not even really penalizing them anything. Since then, we started with the city directors and the county officials, and throughout the year last year and then into this school year, we're up to almost 200 lunch buddies. So you stop and think about that impact. We have 200 people that are going into schools. We're starting pre-K shortly, but so right now kindergarten through middle school, and then a different group in the high school. And they spend about an hour, some people spend 2 hours over a month with a child. Their attendance got better, their attitudes got better, discipline issues cleared up. Kids that were frequent flyers to the nurses stopped seeing the nurse once they got a mentor. So you think that made a big impact, it changed their lives, but it's really crazy the difference it's made to our whole community. You've had all these people that haven't had kids in school for years, some of them, or maybe don't have kids in school yet, or maybe they're young people who've returned to your community in their 20s that have no idea what goes on inside your school walls. But once they get the opportunity to go in and spend time with these kids, they're changing the kids' lives, it's changing their lives, which in turn change our community. The whole culture of Mexico has changed. That no matter what your life circumstances are, no matter if you're young or you're old, you have the potential to save a child, and that's what Bright Futures is all about. There are all kinds of ways that Mexico has added programs, but they all started with this basic first step of just getting mentors in to help kids. Once that happens, everybody's thinking about what would make these kids' lives better. Now we mentor to kids in our alternative school. We do industry tours. We help counsel kids on job opportunities. We've taken senior pictures for kids that couldn't afford it. I mean, it's endless, but it all starts with you. And really, no matter how uncomfortable you think that feels, you go, and it might even be a little rough the first time, but guaranteed it will change their life and change your life. I married a Van Far boy, and any of you that know him will be really surprised that he's a very, very wonderful mentor, even though he might have had some rough patches at Van Far. And he's going to tell you a little bit about his experience.
I had lunch with both my lunch buddies. I had 2 lunch buddies now. I go every other week with each one, sometimes 2 at the same time. During lunch, they asked if they could go to the book fair after eating. I thought these 2 were going to scam me into buying some book on gaming or some other trinket offered by Scholastic. We received special lunch buddy permission to go to the library. My friend Frank Marr also went to the book fair with his lunch buddy. I was determined not to spend any money that morning, so I told the boys I would only buy a book on history or science. So that started a huge discussion on why gaming and Pokemon weren't science. After about 5 minutes of meandering around the library and saying no to every other sentence, the librarian could sense my frustration and jumped in to help. She started asking questions and directing the boys to books other than history and science that I was trying to force down on them. While standing behind one of the lunch buddies and the librarian, I overheard the discussion on how he had already read that book, but he might like to read it again. When they started discussing authors, I looked over the librarian's shoulder and noticed a gold sticker for a Newbery Award book. Wait, what? You are slowing down long enough to rereading favorite books, and you are reading Newbery books? Who would have guessed this little man who runs 90 to nothing and constantly chatters the entire time I spend with him reads so much? We checked prices, and 2 Newbery books were just over the $5 limit, which really doesn't seem right because the Basics of Gaming book is $15.99. I bought the 2 Newberry books for him. My other buddy, on the other hand, needed much persuasion way away from the $25.99 Star Wars Lego combo set. The librarian helped us find him an appropriate fiction book in our price range. On the way back to his classroom, my Newberry lunch break was still chattering, by this time about favorite books and authors. Frank and I both spent a little money that morning about what lunch would have cost us. I think it was worth every penny. I learned that the old adage is right. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Well, unless it's got a gold sticker on it, maybe. Thank you.
Also got asked to go in before school and teach manners to little boys, if that is not ironic. Steve or Tom, did you have anything you wanted to add about your time, or?
I think the main thing is that while you go to the schools and, yeah, you're there helping the kids, it's the lunch buddy that gets the blessing. Because your day is better every time you go. The rest of the day is just smooth and silky.
You're just setting an example of how little it takes really to make a big difference in somebody's life. So with that, thank you so much for being here. I am absolutely positive that Dr. Hunter or Kathy have forms to sign you up to be lunch buddies. Thank you.
Like they said earlier, if you want to take a tour of a new edition, all of the kids are going to be standing at the door, ready to take you through that. Okay, have a good day.
Every child deserves a chance.